Okay, so we've got two graphs we have to do here. First, we're going to do A part. A is when a parabola is in general form. B is where the parabola is in factored form. Okay? So let's first start with general form. If I had to graph this, I'm going to start by identifying my axis of symmetry. Probably from here on out, I'm going to abbreviate that as AOS because I don't have a lot of space when I write on my... Huh? If you say so. I had no idea. Okay, so how do I find the axis of symmetry? I'm going to use the formula. X equals negative B over 2A. So in this problem, what is my B? Okay, we don't know. I need to spend a little bit more time there. A quadratic looks like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So what is my b term? The coefficient of the x. Is there an x?
No.
No. So what is my b term? 0. So I've got negative 0 over 2 times a. What is my a term?
1. Negative 1.
Negative 1. So that means my axis of symmetry is at 0 divided by negative 2, which is 0. So the axis of symmetry is here. X equals 0. Okay, the next thing I'm going to find is the vertex. The vertex always happens on the axis of symmetry. This is where it's going to either reach its highest point or its lowest point. So my axis of symmetry occurs when x is 0. So guess what the x value is of the vertex? 0, because it has to happen on the axis of symmetry. Now how do I find the y value? I'm going to plug 0 in for x. I know what x is. X is 0. What does y give me? That's going to go to 0. I'm just going to be left with 1. So the vertex is at 0, 1. Next thing I want to know, what's the general shape of my parabola? Does it open up or down?
It's going to open down.
How do we know? Because the a term is negative, therefore my parabola opens down. So let's just graph what we know so far. We know the vertex is at 0, 1. We know the axis of symmetry is here on x equals 0. I did not do a very good job drawing those. Give me just a second. Those look like a lot of dots. It's the first time I've done this on my iPad, so. That's a little bit better. Okay, that's my axis of symmetry. I'm going to change my point to be blue. That way it stands out a little bit better. Okay? Now I know it opens down, so that means that the forevers are going to happen in this direction, which means we have a maximum. Not only is it a local maximum, it is a maximum. Okay? Now, I don't know what all they want me to find here. I'm just going to teach it the way I want to teach it. Okay, next thing I want to find. What are my X-intercepts and my Y-intercepts? Because it's a function, there's only one Y-intercept. There's always only one Y-intercept. So, where does the Y-intercept happen? It happens on the Y-axis. So what is true of everything on the Y-axis? The X value is always 0. So to find our Y-intercept, we plug in 0 for X. So if I plug in 0 for X, I'm going to get 1. So in this problem, we already knew the Y-intercept. We don't always, but we did here because the Y-intercept is on the axis of symmetry. So it's the same thing here. But that's not always going to be the case. But to find the y-intercept, we plug in 0 for x. So now how are we going to find the x-intercept? Plug in 0 for y. So this is going to take a little bit of manipulating. So let me move this out of the way for a second. If I plug in 0 for y, I'm going to get 0 equals negative x squared plus 1. And then we solve. X squared equals 1. I take a square root of both sides. Now what happens when I take a square root? I always have to account for the positive or negative. So this one has 2 x-intercepts. They happen at 1, 0, and at negative 1, 0. You're never going to find more than 2 x-intercepts. You can find 1 x-intercept, and you can have no x-intercepts. Okay? But it should all agree with what our graph already knows. So let's look at this graph again. So let me pull this over here. If it has a maximum here, and it's got to go in this direction, I know it has to have 2 x-intercepts. There's no way around it. It has to cross the x-axis twice. How could I only have 1 x-intercept? Yes. What if the vertex was on the x-axis? Then it could hit there and never cross it. It would just touch it, bounce off of it. It could be the same in this direction. So to have 1 x-intercept, the vertex is on the x-axis. How could we have no x-intercepts?
If it never touches the x-axis at all.
Right. So like, what if, in this problem, what if my vertex was here and it's still open down? Well, I'm never going to get an x-intercept. Okay? But all of that information should all agree with each other. Like, I looked at this and I know, hey, there's 2 x-intercepts because everything else I have. So if I don't find 2, then I've messed up somewhere. All the information agrees. So now let's put this information on the graph. We know the x-intercepts are at 1, 0 and negative 1, 0. I have enough information now to graph this. Again, we want to make it look like a U. I've done a bad job so far making it look like a U. That's a little bit better. So do I have other critical points that are correct? I don't know. I'm not graphing by critical points. I'm graphing now by key features of the graph. The key features are the axis of symmetry, the vertex. Does it open up or down? Where are the intercepts? And given those things, I have a general idea of what my graph looks like. We used to teach this before we did parent functions. So if my students were working this problem, they would have to put it in general form. But I don't think we have to do that. You can put it in general form. But if it were me, I don't have to. I know what this graph looks like. Leading coefficient is positive. Therefore, it's going to open up. Where's my axis of symmetry? Well, we normally use that formula. Was this in any form to use that formula? No, it's not. But what happened to my axis of symmetry? I went left 2. So my axis of symmetry is at x equals negative 2. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned with you guys yet, but I want to mention it now. This is the equation of a vertical line. So you should not say the axis of symmetry is negative 2. The axis of symmetry is the line x equals negative 2. It's a vertical line. So you need to have that x equals in your problem. I'm not just doing that for fun. Is everybody good with where I'm getting that from? Say it again.
You said whenever it's a line, it has to be equal.
The axis of symmetry is the equation of a vertical line. So vertical lines are in the form x equals a number. That's what a vertical line graph equation looks like. So a lot of people just say axis of symmetry is -2. That's not complete. The axis of symmetry is x equals -2. It's a line. So don't just put -2. Write the equation of the line of the axis of symmetry. Okay? Next, the vertex. Where's the vertex at? Well, I went left 2 and I went down 3. So where's my vertex? It's at -2, -3. So if I'm here and I know the graph opens up, how many x-intercepts should I expect? 2. It has to cross the x-axis twice because of everything else that's going on. The vertex is beneath the x-axis and it has to open up. So now let's find where those x-intercepts are. So the x-intercepts happen when y is 0. Right? So we would, again, scratch work. I've got 0 equals x plus 2 squared minus 3. And now we're going to solve this. So 3 equals x plus 2 squared. Is everybody with me? This is going to be an ugly one. Square root. So I get radical 3 equals x plus 2. Now because I chose to take a square root, I have to account for the positive or negative possibilities with radical 3. Now solve for x. So I get x equals -2 plus or minus radical 3. So my x-intercepts are at -2 plus radical 3, 0, and at -2 minus radical 3, 0. Again, the x-intercepts always happen when y is 0. So we plug in 0 for y, and we solve. So now where are these on a graph? Well, I have no idea. Okay? I would put these in my calculator and get a decimal approximation. So if I put in -2 plus radical 3, and I'm just going to trust you guys to do it for me.
-2 plus square root of 3.
Comma 0. It's an ordered pair.
I'm going round and say -0.27.
So on this one you get -0.27.
Yeah, I just rounded.
All right, now go to the other one. What's -2 minus radical 3?
-3.73.
Okay, so let's put those on the graph. So -0.27, that's going to be between 0 and -1. It's going to be closer to 0. Okay, so we're looking, let me make this a little bit bigger. We're looking somewhere right in here. Okay, now the other one, -3.73, that's between -3 and -4, but closer to -4. When you look at the general form, do those look believable? Does it look like that could work? Yeah. So again, I'm still on the right track. This still agrees, that looks about right. They're evenly spaced here because it has to be symmetric. If one's really close to the axis of symmetry and one's way over here, you're wrong. If they're both on the same side of the axis of symmetry, you're wrong. Okay? It all has to agree. All of these key features just help confirm what you know it looks like, because you know it's a parabola. It can't be anything else. Okay? You're just confirming. Now, one more thing we want to find is the Y-intercept. So where does the Y-intercept happen? That happens when x is 0. So what happens if I plug in 0 for x? I'm going to get y equals 0 plus 2 squared minus 3. I'm plugging in 0 for x here. So I would get 2 squared, which is 4, minus 3. So the y-intercept is at 1. So I would write the ordered pair 0, 1. All right, let's think about it. 0, 1. Does that kind of fit with what I expected it to be? Yeah, we're still going up. It's still increasing. I can definitely connect those. So it all agrees. So the general form of, or the general pattern of the graph looks something like that. Is that exactly right? No. But I'm just graphing key features of the graph. Okay, so we're just going to go through a few examples today that reinforce what we went over yesterday. I don't think there's going to be much, if anything, new or different from yesterday. So this tells me to describe the graph of 2x squared plus 8x plus 7 and identify the vertex. Okay, so if I'm going to start here, I'm going to first identify where's the axis of symmetry. So we can find the axis of symmetry by using the formula. X equals negative b over 2a. When I substitute in, that's going to be negative 8 over 2 times 2. X equals negative 8 over 4. X equals negative 2 is my axis of symmetry. So that means I know that the graph is the exact same on both sides of this axis of symmetry. Now the next thing I want to identify is the vertex. So the vertex has to happen on the axis of symmetry. So if the axis of symmetry is x equals negative 2, then I know the x coordinate of my vertex is at negative 2. It has to happen on the axis of symmetry. Now to find the y value, we're going to plug negative 2 in for x and see what the y value is. So that's going to be 2 times negative 2 squared plus 8 times negative 2 plus 7. So that's 2 times 4. 8 times negative 2 is negative 16 plus 7. So 8 minus 16 plus 7 should give negative 1. So the vertex is at negative 2, negative 1, which would be right here. Now, what are some more features of the graph? Well, does it open up or does it open down? Well, my leading coefficient A is positive. That means the graph is going to open up. So I know it's in this direction. So do I expect to find any x-intercepts here? I do. So let's go ahead and find those x-intercepts. So x-intercepts happen when the y value is 0. So I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So I now have 0 equals 2x squared plus 8x plus 7. So now to solve this, we could either factor, use the quadratic formula, or complete the square. When I look at that, I would try to factor, but that is not going to work. So factoring's out. So next I would use the quadratic formula. So how did I know factoring wasn't going to work? Well, I did 2 times 7 was 14. So what multiplies to be 14, added or subtracted, is 8. Nothing. So factoring's out. So I said factoring, no go. So let's use the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So again, you've got your calculator. You can plug that directly in and simplify it. I don't have a calculator. So that's going to be 8 times 7 is 56. So I've got negative 8 plus or minus radical 8 all over 4. And so that would be negative 2 plus or minus radical 2 over 2. Is that what you guys got? Put it in your calculator. Does it look different? Or does it look like that? Everybody's with me? That's right. Okay. So now I've got 2 X-intercepts. They're at negative 2 plus radical 2 over 2, 0. And at negative 2 minus radical 2 over 2, 0. So everybody knows where those points are on the graph, right?
Nope.
Me either. So I'm going to put those in my calculator and get a decimal approximation.
How do you,
So I don't have a calculator, so I'm going to listen to your answer.
like over the whole entire fraction or just on the top of it? Just on the top of it.
It's the top of the
The first one is 1.3.
1.3?
Negative.
Okay, I believe that a little bit more. Negative 1.30. And so that means the next one's going to be negative 2.70. Cause symmetry. Okay, so I've got negative 1.3, which is here, and then negative 2.7. Do those look believable? Yeah, okay, all right, okay. That could fit. Now let's find the Y-intercept. So where does the Y-intercept happen? It happens when the X value is 0. So I now have Y equals 2 times 0 squared plus 8 times 0 plus 7. Which means my Y-intercept is at 0, 7. So that means that would happen somewhere up here. Is that believable? Yeah, it still fits in. So this is going to be a very tall, narrow parabola. It is stretched, absolutely. Okay, I won't tell you. I know, I just know I'm getting my graph pulled up. I found my axis of symmetry. Good.
I'm done if you're under.
I found my vertex. Yes, pulled his hamstring.
Listen, ever since I've lost 2 weeks in a row in both leagues, I just quit looking at my fantasy. I quit looking. I'm 3-0.
Remind me after we get done with this one to tell you about my fantasy football week. Remind me.
I guess 3's your Axis of Symmetry. Unless I messed that up.
It should be x equals a number. It's not just a number because it's the equation of a vertical line.
X equals 0. Got that part right. How'd y'all get negative first? What'd you get your first? Hang on, bro. It's negative 6. Over 2. Yeah. Makes you break it. Yeah. Oh, that's right. You got a minus. Then plug in figure out. This is kind of simple. This isn't that bad. Yeah.
Making bank. Okay, so I don't either. Try this one. I found my axis of symmetry. Are you? Well, I'm just now starting.
I was done way long ago. Took me about 2 minutes.
I found my vertex.
I feel pressured.
I know which way it opens. I know my X-Intercepts. I know my Y-Intercept. And now I'm going to graph it.
What's your purpose, guys? Wait, isn't one of your Y's just going to be the last number in the equation?
Yes.
Oh,
Words! Oh! The path of a baseball is given by a function. F of x equals negative 0.0032 x squared plus x plus 3. It's a real nerdy baseball player. Where f of x is the height of the baseball in feet. X is the horizontal distance from home plate in feet. What is the maximum height reached by the baseball?
67.
Huh? Okay, so what do we have here? We have the graph of a parabola. Does it open up or down? Down. Because the leading coefficient is negative. So I got something like this. So which letter tells me the height of the baseball? It says f of x is the height. Well, f of x is just my y value. So I'm looking for where is the height, the y, the greatest? Where's the maximum height? Well, where does the maximum height happen? At the vertex. So can I find where the vertex is? I can by using the axis of symmetry. So I'm going to plug in my axis of symmetry formula. So x equals negative b over 2 times a, negative 0.0032. Okay? And then somebody with a calculator. 156.25. Do I have a second?
Yes.
All in favor say aye.
No, your motion.
All opposed say nay.
Don't you have a motion?
I did. I had to say they moved. They can't say they make a motion.
It's a test.
I took parliamentary procedure with your dad. Okay, so now I'm going to plug in 156 is what? It's the x value. Does that tell me the maximum height? No, it tells me where the maximum height occurs. So now I can plug in 156.25 and find what the y value is there. So I plug in 156.25. And again, I'm going to trust you guys with the math. Plug that in here. Because I don't have a calculator. I can't do that in my head. Hello? Hey. I do. Thanks. Okay. So long, Harrison.
See ya, Harrison.
81.125. So I have a motion. Do I hear a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? The same?
How did I get 3?